All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today we are tackling a huge one, SQL. Seriously, this is one of the most in-demand skills in tech right now. It doesn't matter if you're a data scientist, a marketer, a developer, SQL is kind of the engine that makes our whole data-driven world go round. I love this quote because it really hits the nail on the head. SQL isn't just about writing code, right? It's about having a conversation with data. It's the language that lets us ask real questions and get actual answers from all that information that companies are collecting, like every single second. And look, the demand for this skill, it is just staggering. Check this out. A recent analysis found that a whopping 78%, yeah, almost 8 out of 10, organizations are making SQL proficiency a top priority for their data roles. So this isn't some nice-to-have skill on your resume anymore. It's pretty much a must-have. Okay, so when we talk about using SQL, what are we actually talking to? Well, you're talking to a database, and you can just think of that as a super organized system for storing and grabbing information. And SQL, which stands for Structured Query Language, is basically the universal translator for these systems. It's the standard, the go-to language for chatting with what we call relational databases. And these are the engines that power almost everything you use daily. Think about your favorite e-commerce site or your banking app. Yep, that's them. This is actually a great way to think about it. If you've ever used Excel, you're honestly halfway there. Imagine a single spreadsheet. That's like one table in a database. But a relational database, that's more like a whole workbook full of interconnected spreadsheets. You know, where you can change something on one sheet and it automatically updates another. That relational part is what makes it so incredibly powerful for dealing with complex data without everything turning into a complete mess. Okay, so how do we actually start this conversation with our data? Well, it really boils down to 4 basic commands. You can think of them as the action verbs of SQL. And here they are: select, insert, update, and delete. These 4 actions are the foundation for pretty much everything you're going to do. There's a really handy acronym to remember them by: CRUD. It stands for create, read, update, and delete. If you can get these 4 down, you have absolutely mastered the fundamentals. Let's start with select. This is just how you ask the database to show you something. You're not changing any data, you're just looking. It's the read part of our CRUD acronym. And one of the reasons SQL is so great for beginners is that it almost reads like plain English. See how logical this is? You just tell the database what columns you want to see, then from which table, and then you can use that where clause to get super specific, like, hey, only show me the folks from New York. All right, next up is insert. This is how you add new data into your database. Pretty straightforward, right? So when a new person joins the company, you'd use this to add a new row to your employees table. This is the create part of CRUD. And again, the structure is super simple. You literally just say inserts a new record into this specific table, and then you list out the values you want to add, like their name and their department. Okay, now what if you need to change something that's already there? That's where update comes in. Instead of deleting and starting over, you can make a precise fix. This is our update action. And here's a super important point. That where clause is crucial. It lets you pinpoint the exact record you want to change. Because, trust me, if you forget it, you could accidentally update every single customer's email at once. That's a mistake you definitely only make once. And last but not least, we have delete. It does exactly what it sounds like. It permanently removes a record. And just like with update, that where clause is your absolute best friend. It's what makes sure you're only deleting the one thing you mean to. All right, so we've got the basic verbs down, but now we get to the real magic. This is what makes relational databases so incredibly powerful, combining data from different tables. And we do this using a command called a join. Think of a join as the way you link different tables together using a piece of information they have in common, like an ID number. It literally lets you connect the dots between all your different pieces of data to see the whole picture. So, for example, let's imagine we have 2 separate tables. The first one has our employees, and it has a department ID, but it doesn't have the actual department name. Then we have a second table that just lists the department IDs and their names, like sales or marketing. They're separate tables, but you can see how they're related, right? An inner join is how you tell the database to connect the dots. You're saying, hey, combine these tables for me and match them up on the column they share, which in this case is the department ID. And just like that, you can grab an employee's name from one table and their department's name from the other, all in one shot. And boom, the result is one single unified table. We've pulled information from two different places to create something new and much more meaningful. This right here is the absolute core of why relational databases are so amazing. Okay, so what does knowing all this stuff actually mean for you? In the real world, why is this one of the absolute best skills you could possibly invest your time in right now? Well, the short answer is opportunity. Being good at SQL opens the door to a huge variety of high-demand jobs in pretty much any industry you can imagine. And it's not just for data analysts and data scientists. Marketers are using it to track campaigns, product managers are using it to figure out what users are doing, and of course, developers are using it to build the apps we all use every single day. You see, at the end of the day, learning SQL isn't really about learning to code. It's about learning to speak the language of data. It's what lets you go beyond just reading a report someone else made and start asking your own powerful questions. And let's be real, in a world where data is basically the most valuable asset there is, knowing how to speak its language, well, that's a superpower.